Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are here with part 2 of my makeup wish list. Yesterday I covered all of my non-eyeshadow products, so today all that's left to do is my eyeshadows. So I'm really excited to share with you everything that's on my wish list for my eyeshadow palettes. Obviously I am kind of on a low buy, no buy for eyeshadow this year, so a lot of these things I probably won't pick up this year, but in general these are the things that I eventually want to pick up or try in my collection. Some of them are for like the collector's mentality, some of them are just things that I'm intrigued by, but in general these are the main things that are on my eyeshadow wish list. So I'm excited to jump into the video, but before I do so, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in the family. Let's jump into the video. So I forgot to say also, if you haven't checked out my video yesterday, make sure to do so first, because yesterday I talked about all of the other makeup products I would love to try, and I have some really good ones on there. Also, I did ask for some recommendations yesterday, so if you do have anything, please leave it down below in yesterday's video. But also in general, if you have any kind of makeup products, eyeshadow products, any makeup product in general, that you think I would love and that you feel like would suit me, let me know down below. It could be anything. If you just have any recommendations at all, you can leave them down below, because I'm love to know, and I feel like you guys know me really well, so you might know what I would like. So anyway, today we're going to talk about eyeshadow palettes, so let's jump straight into it. I'm also going to sit on this side so I can put up pictures of the palettes right here, and we're going to start off with Natasha Denona. So right now I do have quite a few Natasha Denona palettes in my collection. I do really love them, but there's a couple more that I have on my list that I would like to pick up at some point. We're going to start with the biggest sizes first, so let's jump straight into it. First up, we have the midi sizes. So the first palette I have is the Glam palette. This is more of a cool tone palette, but I do feel like this would be a good cool tone staple in my collection. This is probably one that is a little bit further down on the list compared to some of the other ones on this kind of list, I guess, because I have other priorities. But at some point, if I ever like complete my Natasha Denona collection, this is definitely on there as well. Next up, we have the pastel palette, which is definitely a bit higher up there. I think this is definitely a palette that I would love to have. I don't really go for super dark looks, so I think this would suit me quite well. And it's like that, like colorful but still wearable undertones that I really do enjoy. So it's definitely a palette that I am dying to try. Next to that, we have a palette that I was originally not very interested in, but I have really grown to be fond of this color story, and I would again love to pick it up at some point. And that is My Dream. Yeah, I feel like this color story is just beautiful. I originally thought it was too like deep for me, but the more I look at it, the more I see looks with it, I do really like it. So again, that's another palette that I do want to try. One of her more recent, if not, is this her most recent release? I think it might be, but otherwise it's a very, very recent release, is the I Need a Nude. This is definitely another one that's on the list. I would love to pick this one up. This is probably one of the highest up there out of the few that I have on my list. So far, I think that I Need a Nude and the pastel palettes are probably the two that are ranking the highest to pick up next. But yeah, really, really intrigued by this palette. Lastly, for the midi sizes, we have the Retro palette. This is one, again, that I wasn't very interested in originally, but I have grown fond of this one, and I feel like I love these kind of pinkier tones. So for what I'm into right now, this is a perfect type of palette for me, so it is on the list again. I do also have one of her big size palettes, so like the full size 15-pan palettes on the list too, and this is another one that is very, very high up there. This is probably the palette that I'm most intrigued to pick up next. I think so, yeah. I think that's definitely the one I would want to pick up next if I do pick up another Natasha Denona palette, and that is the Trio Chrome palette. I am dying to try this one, and surprisingly, it's not for the multi-chromes in here. The reason why I want to pick this palette up is because of the mattes and the undertones of the mattes. I feel like the quality of Natasha Denona is so good, and I feel like the shades in this palette and like the undertones of them are just like so unique, and I feel like they're very wearable. They're the type of colorful shades that I'm going for right now, which is obviously like colorful but still a bit kind of more wearable and muted. I mean, today I'm wearing quite a bright look, but in general, that's kind of what I'm drawn to at the moment. So this is definitely one that is very, very high up on my wish list. Then lastly, for Natasha Denona, we have one mini palette, and that is the Mini Glam palette. I think, again, this one would be a really good staple. It's a neutral palette, so, you know, I think it would be one that it's really good to have to travel with, and yeah, you could use out of in general. So those are all the things from Natasha Denona. And don't worry, that is the brand with the most palettes from one singular brand. So we already gone through quite a lot of the list. But the next brand is another one that I already have palettes from, and I would love to complete like the collection of what I want. like what I've lusted after, and that is Pat McGrath. So I do have a couple palettes that are on the list. It's 3 palettes that I still are interested in picking up. And the first one is the Mothership 2, which is the Sublime palette. This is probably one of the ones that it's probably the one that ranks the most of the 3 that I want to pick up. So definitely interested in this palette. I think it's such a beautiful color story, and I feel like a lot of people really rave about this color story. It is quite dark, but in general, I think it would be really fun to own this one. So that's definitely on the list. Next up, we have Mothership number 3, which is Subversive. Again, I think this is a beautiful color story. Again, it's probably not as high up there as the Sublime palette, but it's definitely one as well that I am interested in, and I do think is quite fun and unique. So definitely another one that I'm interested in trying. And then lastly, from Pat McGrath, we have the Mothership 6, which is the Midnight Sun. I feel like this is a beautiful kind of autumnal color story. I love like the green in here, and I love it mixed with that kind of orangey matte. And in general, just like the undertones, I think, especially of the special shades, I feel like it's very fun. So this is one that I've been going back and forth between a little bit, but ultimately I do think I would really enjoy this palette, so it is definitely on the list. Alright, so those were all the Pat McGrath palettes. So let's move on to like some brands with like singular palettes. So I only have like one palette on the wish list for those. The next brand is Patrick Ta, and I want to try one of his Major Dimension palettes. And right now, the ones that I have on the list is either Major Dimension 1 or Major Dimension 3. I think Major Dimension 3 is the all matte palette, right? And then the one is like his first release, which is like the more warm tone neutral palette. I can't decide which one I would love to try most. If you tried his formula, I'm interested to see what you think of the shimmer shades, because I feel like some people don't really like the shimmer shades in the palette, which is why I'm potentially looking at the all matte palette. But yeah, if you tried either of those 2 palettes, what do you think? Definitely interested in one of them. Definitely not both, and that's why I'm kind of saying it's like a singular palette. Because even though that's 2, I would only pick up one out of the 2. So the next brand I want to talk about is Kasha. So I've been really intrigued by their bento stacks for a while now, and I definitely would like to pick up at least one to try. And the palette that I'm most intrigued by, very influenced by It's Just Steph, is the Peach Madeline stack. I would love to pick that one up. I feel like it's such a beautiful color story. The sparkly topper shade is absolutely stunning in this palette, and I think this would be a good kind of everyday palette to have. So that is definitely on the list. It's another one that's quite high up there to try because it's a new brand to me, and also it's like not too many shades, and I feel like the formula you've seen really, really lovely. So the last palette for the kind of standalone palette per brand that I have to talk about is one from Rowan. Currently I have 2 palettes from Rowan, and honestly this palette that I'm going to talk about probably shouldn't be on here because I'm not really using my Rowan quads very much, but this is still one that I am intrigued by, and I feel like the colors in here are very stunning, and that is the 1111 quad. So this is the more kind of rosier undertone palette. I currently have the 75 degrees quad as well as the Eyes on Me quad. And those are more kind of warm toned. The 75 degrees quad is a bit more kind of neutral, but it has like a lot of golds and things like that. Whereas the Eyes on Me quad is very, very rusty, warm tones. So I'm intrigued to try the 1111 quad just because I feel like they would bring some unique undertones to my collection, and everyone uses raves about the palette and says it's one of the best Rowan quads. So yeah, that is one that I might not pick up straight away, but it's definitely one that is in the back of my mind. Alright, so we have 2 more brands left to go, but we have a couple palettes. So the next brand we have is Viseart, and I have tried one palette from Viseart, which is the Paris Edit palette, which I got passed down to me from my friend, and I'm so grateful for that. But it has really opened my eyes out for Viseart, and I've always been intrigued by them, but I do really want to pick up a couple more kind of palettes because I feel like they're really, really useful. And not just do I think they're really like versatile and the quality is really good, I also have found that I used my Viseart Paris Edit palette quite a lot when I'm traveling because they're so small. Like the small pans are like perfect to put in BYOP, so you can fit a lot of shades because they are magnetic too. And you can kind of like, I love pairing them with my more indie shadows for the mask because again, there's a lot of space, like you can fit a lot, but also the formula is really nice. So the palettes from them that I would love to try is first up the Warm Mattes. Again, as the name suggests, you have a lot of warm matte options in here. I think it was very, really versatile, and again, I do love traveling with these, so I feel like this would be a really good staple to have. Similar to that, we have the neutral matte, which is a little bit more cool toned. Yeah, I'm really, really excited to try that one too at some point. I feel like I would love this one for the same reason. Just give a lot of versatility to my collection, and I would love to pair this one with my indie shadows, as well as just having for my big royal piece and for traveling. Then we have the Editorial Brights, which is a very, very bright palette. As you can see, I feel like this again would be giving a lot to my collection. I don't really have any rainbow palettes, so this one would definitely be a good option. So that's the next one. We also have two more kind of matte palettes. We have the Cool Mattes, which is very cool toned. You can see it right here. I don't really reach for cool tones very much, but these tones are very unique to me. So I feel like this one would definitely be something fun to have. And then another palette that would be very unique to me and bring in a lot, I believe, is the Dark Mattes, which is that dark, but it has like a bit more kind of colorful undertones, and I do love them. Actually, the palette I'm wearing is the Club Nebula palette from Kaleidos, and that one also have the kind of similar vibes where it has like dark shades, but they're still colorful, which is something that I really do enjoy. So that's all the things for Viseart. That is 5 palettes, and again, obviously I won't pick up everything at one point, but these are things that are on my wish list that, you know, if I could have anything and wouldn't have to worry about the size of my collection or getting overwhelmed, anything like that, I would definitely pick all of these up. And if you ever tried Viseart, let me know which one is your favorite palette. Again, I've only tried the Paris Edit so far. Then the final brand that we have to talk about today is Cleona. I can't do one of these videos without mentioning Cleona. Also, by the way, I'm not including any singles in this video. I do have kind of single shadow wish lists running. I add singles all the time to them, but I didn't want to go through all of them. So these are only palettes. But I do have a couple palettes from Cleona, and these are very, very new releases. And that is the new 3 kind of bundle palettes that they released, which is the Paleo palette, the Archeo palette, and Oceano palette. I believe that's how they pronounce it, that's what they called. But I would love to pick these up. I believe the color story that I'm most intrigued by is Archeo. That one is definitely really, really stunning, but all of them have kind of things that I really love about them, and I'm used to intrigued by all 3. Again, I'm not sure if I would pick up all 3, especially not in one go, but they are definitely palettes that I'm really intrigued to try. And these are new re-releases. Cleona has started trying to do mattes again, which is something that I would love to try. And I do have most eyeshadows from Cleona. I don't have the full Dragon Fruit palette. I have a couple singles from that palette, but not everything. And I don't have the most recent Stained Glass Collection releases, which is something that I'm also going to pick up at some point. But other than that, I have every single eyeshadow from Cleona. So, you know, these palettes, yes, will complete my collection, but also I am really intrigued by them. Like I said, I didn't pick up the Dragon Fruit palette because I felt like that wasn't for me. But with these 3 palettes, I think they're absolutely stunning, and I do think they would be absolutely lovely to have in my collection. So those are all of the things that are on my eyeshadow wish list right now when it comes to palettes. What is your favorite palette right now? I would love to know. And if you tried any of the palettes that I mentioned on this list, what are your thoughts? Do you think they're worth it? Do you think they're not? Also, there is a lot of palettes that are from indie brands that I have kind of had my eye on, but, you know, I feel like with those things, they're very exciting when they first come out, and then I kind of forget about them. But there's definitely a couple brands that I would love to try. We have like Cosmic Beauty, they call them, not Cosmic Brushes, but Cosmic Beauty I would love to try. I would also love to try Ensley Rain. Those have really intrigued me too. I think those are like the top 2 indie brands, but I don't have like specific palettes necessarily, but definitely would like to try those. So if you have any recommendations for those 2 brands, let me know down below as well. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the video here. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and if you did, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Again, let me know what your favorite palette is at the moment. I would love to know, and otherwise I will catch you in my next one. Bye guys!